Good day, my name is John Alfred Milanes.
Good day, my name is Gina Samiliana.
Good day, my name is Risa Maris Hernando.
And we are going to talk about Renaissance architecture in France. The Renaissance in France. French Renaissance architecture is the style of architecture which was imported to France from Italy during the 16th century and developed in the light of local architecture traditions. While artists and their patrons in France and the rest of Europe were still discovering and developing Gothic style, in Italy, a new type of art, inspired by the classical heritage, was beginning to emerge. The first flowering of the Italian Renaissance came in the early years of 15th century, but it was not for another 100 years when the Renaissance was well established in Italy that it began to flourish in France. So, during the Renaissance in France, there was three kings who had the greatest influence in the French Renaissance. First is Francis I, the second is Henry II, lastly Louis XII. So the first king who had the greatest influence was Francis I from 1515 to 1547. For me, he had the greatest influence just because he did not just brought Renaissance to France, but he also invited the Renaissance man himself, Leonardo da Vinci, from Italy to France. He also collected paintings by the great Italian masters like Titian, Raphael, and Michelangelo. He was known for the variety of ornaments, fancy motifs, and graceful composition. And now we are going to talk about the structures from Renaissance in France. First is the Chateau d'Amboise in 1495. Um, the Chateau d'Amboise had played a unique role in Renaissance in France. It was the favorite residence among the kings of France. This is actually the place where Leonardo stayed. He traveled from Italy to France, carrying with him sketchbooks and unfinished artworks, and he was hired by the king to be the first painter, architect, and engineer. Leonardo lived here from 1516 until his death in 1590. The next structure was the Chateau de Chambord. It is one of the most recognizable chateaux in the world. The chateau was never intended to provide any form of defense. It is very decorative. King Francis I began the construction of Chambord on 1518. He intended the castle to be his hunting lodge. He only used it for short stays. The architect for the Chateau de Chambord was Domenico da Cartona, and the castle was also the inspiration for the beautiful Castle of the Beast in 1991 Disney film, The Beauty and the Beast, 1991. The next structure was the Louvre. There are three architects in this building. First was Pierre Lescot, second was Louis Le Vau, and lastly Claude Perrault. It all started around 1190 when Philippe Auguste wants a fortress enclosure to protect Paris. Its main objective was to protect and perhaps to watch over the city, but it was constructed again by the order of King Francis I to serve as a royal palace. Like many old buildings, it was built and rebuilt over the years.
Henry II. Henry II was the King of France 1547 to 1559. Henry II's style marks the very high and flower of the French Renaissance, the climax to which all previous development was only preparatory. He also showed the Italian classic influence. The second period of French Renaissance architecture commenced in about 1540, late in the reign of Francis I, and continued until the death of his successor Henry II in 1559. The second period featured also a wide variety of decorative plaques and sculptural decoration on the facades. The detail borrowed from classic architecture. Slender columns, cornice, moldings, frieze has simple forms, superb proportion and balance. The Chateau d'Annet was designed by Philibert Delorme, who studied in Rome. Considered to be a gem from French Renaissance and hotspot for art, the Chateau d'Annet was built in 1548 by King Henry II for his mistress Diane de Poitiers. Diane's magnificent chateau is located on the estate, and all that remains today is one wing. Chateau de Fontainebleau is one of the largest royal chateaux. Francis I and Napoleon were the monarchs who had the most influence on the palace as it stands today. Following the death of Francis I, King Henry II decided to continue and expand the chateau. The king and his wife chose architects Philibert Delorme and Jean Bouillon to do the work. They extended the east wing of the lower court and decorated it with the first famous horseshoe-shaped staircase.
Louis XIII was the King of France from 1610 to 1643. Under his reign, France became a leading European power. Louis took the throne at a young age. He was crowned king after the assassination of his father Henry IV in 1610. Louis XIII was respected as one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. Louis died in 1643. Château de Maison, chateau built by Francine Moissart for René de Longueuil from 1630 to 1651. Château de Maison was built between the Seine and the forest of Saint-Germain-en-Laye. Chateau stood on a rectangular platform and its total of 333 hectares. It is two-story facade with its double stage of twin column supporting a pediment and flanking console. The plan of the church is a Latin cross crowned by dome. Church of Val-de-Grâce. The church was designed by Francine Moissart, succeeded by Jacques Lemessier. The church is a Roman Catholic.